The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, April the 2nd, 2025. We have a very important show for you today. I'm going to be talking with Dr. Brian Hooker in a minute about living with autism, the reality of living with autism. And then we're going to go to Alix Mayer and Dr. Fox with some very important action news for you. And then Jenny McCarthy is going to tell her story from when she was on the bus about autism. So that's our lineup for today. So, okay, let's start straight off and bring Dr. Brian Hooker, our Chief Scientific Officer at Children's Health Defense, onto the show this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Polly. So good to see you.
So good to see you too. Well, now look, apparently today is World Autism Day, whatever that means.
Right, right.
Both parents of adults with autism, and every day is an autism day. Every night, every moment.
Every moment you live, you're providing 24/7 care, and that is the case for about 80% of all individuals diagnosed with autism. They will not be able to live independently, and so you might think, oh well, it's something to be celebrated. It's just quirkiness. It's odd square pegs, whatever you want to call it. No, autism is debilitating, and one of the worst things about it is that you watch your wonderful special child go through immense amounts of pain. A lot of these children are in pain. They're acting out not because they're bad people. They are acting out because they are in pain. And that's one of the worst things a parent can ever go through, is seeing your child in debilitating pain and not having anything that you can do for it.
Right, and all this autism is a gift. Well, it's not a gift in this household.
No.
My son is so lonely, and there's so many other adults like Billy out there that are just desperately lonely. It's a very sad condition to watch your child have. I just want to bring up something else that nobody really wants to talk about. Billy was diagnosed with autism. That is not the name that you and I would give for what happened to Billy. Billy was vaccine injured. He went from this bright, bubbly 13-month-old to literally losing everything overnight, thrashing his head against the wall, high-pitched scream, walking on tiptoes, totally oblivious to the fact that any of us were part of his family anymore. So this beautiful, cuddly child went to just in another world. And he still has lumps on his head from when he used to thrash his head against anything that he could get hold of. His head is still big.
Right.
He's still miserable. We do everything we can to give him the best quality of life that we can with chickens and everything else, a good life. But this is not the life that Billy should have had. And that's what people need to understand. These vaccines took away our children as they should have been today.
Precisely. They took away our children's future. They took away their hopes and dreams and aspirations. And, my son really desperately wants to speak. I mean, now that he's doing spelling to communicate, he wants to be able to speak, but literally his voice has been taken away from him because of his vaccine injury. And it was clear as, my nose on my face, that what happened that day is what led to his regression into autism. And on top of this, then you invite, people from social services into your household. I mean, with us, we get services from the state of California. And so, there's always this laundry list of individuals that come into the household or check into you, in with you on a monthly basis. And it's quite invasive. It's quite difficult. And it's very, very, very expensive. I mean, this is not a proposition that my family would have ever signed on to. I mean, nobody ever signs on to having a child that has a debilitating illness, but that's what it is.
Right. And then the other question is, what's going to happen to our beautiful adult children with so-called autism when we're no longer around. I mean, this is a situation that actually affects everybody. Everybody should be concerned about the autism tsunami in America and indeed around the world. And we're expecting some more stats out on autism, maybe today, but certainly this month. And we all know they're going to be bad. You know how we know? Because we can see it. We can go to the supermarket, wherever we go, we hear autism. It is everywhere.
We see autism everywhere. I live in California. The autism rate is 1 in 22. The Department of Health and Social Services can't keep up with the autism tsunami. You know, this is going to bankrupt the entire nation as these children get older and start to age out. You know, when Billy was diagnosed and when my son Steve was diagnosed, the rate of autism was 1 in 250. Now being 1 in 22 in California and 1 in 34 in the United States. I mean, that is a tremendous amount of children. And if it continues this way, you know, I look at the research of Dr. Stephanie Seneff. By 2032, it's going to be 1 in 2 and 80% of all the boys. So everybody that we know will either be autistic or they will be caring for somebody that's autistic. And that's no way to have a life. That's no way to run a country. It has to stop.
And you wrote a book, Vaxxed Unvaxxed, Let the Science Speak. And in that shows, because the point I'm trying to get to here is that we were lied to.
Right.
All of our parents were lied to. We took our children to get these vaccinations in really good faith that we believed and trusted the doctors. We believed and trusted in the so-called science. And most of us parents just want an apology, someone to say, yes, this happened to your children. We know it happened to our children.
Right.
But your book really proves the difference. If we had not vaccinated your son, Steve, and we'd not vaccinated Billy, then they would be in the unvaxxed section, which is unbelievable, the health and the cleverness and wonderfulness of the children as they were supposed to be.
Exactly. You know, we saw that multiple studies showed that the autism incidence was at least 5 times higher in the vaccinated group than in vaccinated group, and it got even worse. I mean, these were studies where the practitioners would allow us to access the data, and so a lot of these families, even in the vaccinated group, they were getting less vaccines. So I know that if we look at something like the vaccine safety data link at the CDC that look at typical families that are following the CDC schedule, it's going to be much worse than 5 times higher. It's probably going to be more like 25 times higher. And it's very, very difficult. I know of one, but it's very, very difficult to find an unvaccinated autistic child. And usually there are other toxins that are in play. There are other toxic components that have contributed to that individual's autism. But so many times you hear the story over and over and over again. My son, my daughter, they were fine before they got the vaccines. They were vaccinated. They had the high-pitched screaming. They had the fever. And when they recovered from the fever, they started losing their skills. They started losing their abilities. They started losing the ability to have complete and normal bowel movements. You know, we hear it all the time, and you hear it from families in a shockingly, increasingly level today.
Yeah, and actually you just made a really good point. I mean, what even is autism? What they say autism is one thing, but we're not saying that vaccines are the only thing that can cause autism, because autism, in my mind, is brain injury. And you can have brain injury from so many different things. We just happen to have a lot of vaccine-induced autism, as whatever they want to call our children.
Right. I mean, vaccines and vaccine components are neurotoxic. We know that. We know that aluminum is a neurotoxin. We know that mercury is a neurotoxin. We know that polysorbate 80 softens up the blood-brain barrier, so these toxins can get into the brain. And so, having that mixture of components is really the perfect combination, especially these kids like Billy and Steve, who are genetically set up not to be able to detoxify, not to be able to get rid of these toxins in a timely basis. And we know a significant portion of the population is in that category. And it's becoming increasing. It used to be that the toxicity threshold was much, much higher. Now the toxicity threshold is much, much lower because our children are being exposed to more and more toxins earlier and earlier, with the hepatitis B vaccine at the first day of life, with prenatal shots, with shots at 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months, where they're getting upwards to 8 different vaccines, 8 different needle sticks in a single visit. It's just too many, too soon. And, we're seeing not only autism, but we're also seeing young babies die, within hours of receiving their infant vaccines. And, everybody turns a blind eye. They look the other way. They say it's a coincidence, but we know different.
And also to warn the parents out there, as we have done many times, that you may say you have an unvaccinated child, but you took the vitamin K, a birth of synthetic vitamin K. That is causing another slew of problems out there, and can also induce autism. And the ROGAM as well. Do your research at Anti-D in England. But so many parents say they've got unvaccinated kids, but they've had the ROGAM or they've had the vitamin K. Those are toxins that are going into your beautiful baby. So onwards we go. Now, the Defender are calling for stories, everybody. So if you want to write, we'll put the show links in here for you. It's a little form, fill it out. It's not very long, but if you want to share your autism story, they are collecting these stories. And it can be the story of what happened to your child, but also the frustrations of living with autism that nobody talks about. We're supposed to be in Autism Awareness Month celebrating autism. Well, I'm not celebrating it. I think we expose it for what it really is. It's not a natural thing that God gave our children, or whatever it is you want to say. This is sheer abuse to our children, and their life is living hell.
Right. And neurodiversity is a sham. When you talk about neurodiversity, when you talk about individuals, you're taking individuals who are suffering and you're trying to normalize that. So you're taking, children and adults like Billy, Steve, so many others, and saying, hey, you know what, your suffering is normal. You just have to deal with it. You have to live with it. And that's going to be, the only trajectory in life. No, not only do we need to prevent autism from happening ever again, but we also need to clean up our mess. We need to remediate this. We need to give good trajectories for these children and adults. We need to find solutions and cures for autism. And we know that we never got compensated for our vaccine injuries, which we should have been justly compensated for our vaccine injuries. And the government needs to turn that around and clean up their mess. I mean, they have created a huge iatrogenic catastrophe, and they need to clean up their mess, and they do need to remunerate these children and these families.
I quite agree. And so to all of you parents out there that are living with autism, we send our love to you on this day that everybody's telling us to celebrate it. We know how hard it is. We know how you can't go anywhere. John and I don't know when we last went out together. We can't. One of us has to be with our adults with autism, while the other. It's a lifelong sentence. Do we love our children? Immensely.
Yes.
Are we grateful they didn't die from the vaccines? Absolutely. But let's not sugarcoat this wonderful World Autism Day or month of autism. It is, for most people, absolute hell for the families, for the siblings, for the grandparents. It splits the family. It ruins you financially. Most people are divorced. Like 85% of families are divorced because you just can't cope it. There's nothing good about it, except for our children are alive and we love them immensely for who they are. And we're terribly sorry that we ever took up those beautiful children in for vaccinations. I tell Billy I'm sorry the whole time.
Right. It's something that we apologize all the time. We would have done differently if we would have known differently. We were lied to about the vaccination schedule, about vaccines, and about what vaccine injury really looks like. You're told, oh, it might be a minor site injury. They might run a fever, treat the fever with Tylenol. So not only are you told a lie, but then you're told another lie on top of that to treat it with Tylenol, which we know that Tylenol has been linked to autism as well. And so, there's just so many things that we've been lied to. We are here at Children's Health Defense because we want to spread the truth. We want to prevent autism. We want families not to have to go through what the Tommy family and what the Hooker family have gone through, and so many other families, within CHD and outside of CHD have gone through and are going through.
Yeah, we have a lot of parents on staff with autistic
Yes.
children fighting for the world to know what happened to our children. They took one for the team so that you all can wake up and never go through this experience that our children are going through. Dr. Brian Hooker, thank you for being the best Chief Scientific Officer ever at Children's Health Defence, for all your research and your amazing team. And if people haven't seen, Heather Ray, who works with Brian Hooker, did an amazing vaccine of the week with hepatitis B. Please pull that out, send it to every young mum or pregnant mother that you can think of. She's working through the schedule. We will get every single one of those vaccines out to you. So please thank Heather for her amazing work, Brian. And thank you for being on this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Polly. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, everybody, now we're going to go to Alix Mayer, who has some very interesting news for us, and she's going to bring on Dr. Fox as well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Polly. It's great to be here and great to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while. Good morning, Dr. Fox. Thank you for being here. Well, Alix and I spoke last night, so this is a last minute bringing on. Alix, tell everybody what you told me last night.
So we have Free Now Foundation in California. We're the leading medical freedom law nonprofit in California. And there's a design to fail medical exemption system here in California. You have to submit a medical exemption to a database called CAIR-ME, which we call CARE-ME, but we also call it the anti-vaxxer database. And that exemption gets bounced up to the Department of Public Health in California, and they've overturned every single legitimate medical exemption that we know of. And they're doing it systematically now. Like the few that are left, we actually heard that they've hired a group to go around school by school and disqualify every single medical exemption from children. And this is an absolute tragedy. So children are left in California with the choice of homeschooling, which involves one parent giving up their career to homeschool usually, or leaving the state. And California, because of this law, this designed to fail medical exemption system, has created so many medical refugees who just fled the state. And they're abandoning grandparents in the state, and everybody here is extremely upset. There are no options here at all. So on our board at Children's Health Defense, we have Dr. Richard Fox, who is on this call, and he is the only vaccine optional pediatrician in California. He's also a lawyer, and so he's filed a lawsuit so we can do something about this. So I want to hand it over to Dr. Fox to talk about the lawsuit.
Okay, Alix, also, it's he's on the board of Free Now Foundation, not Children's Health Defense.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Come on, let's hear from you, Dr. Fox, please. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Very nice to be here. It's sad that we have to be here, but that's what we do in medicine and law, is we take problems and try to fix them. So as a medical doctor, I've seen the scope of this problem. Fortunately, I'm also a California licensed attorney, and I'm in some position to do something about it. So we've filed a lawsuit in federal court to try to get the legal requirement in California for shots to go to school. We've filed a lawsuit to try to get that thrown out. The reason that California has the authority to do this goes back 120 years to a Supreme Court decision in 1905 called the Jacobson decision. And Jacobson is what the state and the courts always rely on to force vaccines on families and children. Jacobson involved a law in Massachusetts that required adults to get smallpox vaccinations. We're going to argue that Jacobson really no longer is applicable and should be thrown out by the courts. Jacobson explicitly found that smallpox vaccinations didn't hurt anybody, that they didn't cause injury. Well, now we know that the modern CDC recommended schedule of shots causes a lot of injury. And we don't even have to argue about it, because in 1986, the Congress passed a law, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, to provide compensation for all these families with injured children. Of course, they don't do a very good job of compensating, but even the limited compensation that's available has paid out $5.3 billion of compensation to injured families and children. So we can tell the court that there's really no controversy about whether vaccines cause injury because the Congress has said so, and the vaccine injury courts have awarded billions of dollars of injury compensation. So therefore, Jacobson really doesn't apply anymore because now we know for sure, as a matter of law, that these vaccines cause a lot of injury. So that's the basis of our lawsuit. Now, we would like to try to ask people with vaccine-injured children to send us declarations attesting to the fact that their child was injured because we want to use those in this lawsuit. So we're going to be putting a link up on our Free Now Foundation website that parents can go to that and they can fill in the blank. There's a form there. You just fill in the blanks, tell us about your child and your injury. And then you sign at the bottom. It's on penalty of perjury. So therefore, it's a legitimate legal document. And we'd like to have as many of those as we can that we can put in front of the court so that the court knows that there are real people with real children who've been had real injury from this, that they're not just statistics, that there are real injured families and children behind all those statistics. We want to make it personal so the court can understand the true dimensions of this problem.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. Now, is that just California children, or can we all get involved in that?
We'll take declarations from anywhere, California, the United States, Europe, anywhere where anybody can help us with this.
Yeah, it's vitally important that they do. So everyone around the world, you're all being invited to do this. We have to help the California children. Alix, how can you describe what it's like for parents at the moment trying to send their school? Like really visually describe it for people, because I don't think people really understand what the attack you're under in California.
It's really awful, and I can't emphasize the importance of getting these declarations from people who've had children who've died from vaccines or suffered the vaccine injuries. That's how we're going to prove to the court that Jacobson doesn't apply anymore, because as Dr. Fox said, Jacobson assumed that the vaccines were safe, and that's just not true. And we have all the proof in the world to show that Jacobson just doesn't apply anymore, and that's going to take away a big barrier to winning a lot of cases. And we do file in federal court in California, so a win in California is going to help everybody in every other state, and especially if this were to go to the Supreme Court, that would obviously help the entire United States. But just in terms of the impact on people of this law, Dr. Fox and I have been working with, I'm just going to tell one story of a woman in Ventura, and her son, his medical exemption was pulled by the Department of Public Health because their group hit Ventura County really hard, and they pulled all the medical exemptions. And the boy is in 7th grade, and his family is really committed to not giving him more vaccines because of prior injuries. And so they've tried to take their boy to school a number of times. In fact, the 3rd time she went with her son to school, she brought witnesses and filmed it to show that she was taking her son to school. Nonetheless, they have charged her with truancy, and they put her into this horrific meeting. It was an ambush with 13 people against her. They told her that there was going to be no attorney there for their side, and the DA was there. So luckily she called Dr. Fox and put him on speakerphone, and Dr. Fox has this Superman cape that he lives with. You can't see it, but he got on the phone and said that this was illegal, that she has representation, so they could not have representation in that meeting and ambush her like that. And that meeting has ended. That meeting was ended. But Dr. Fox, I don't know what's going on with her case right now. And truancy is a very serious charge. It involves jail time for parents.
That's right. They actually were threatened her with criminal prosecution, not just sort of a child welfare prosecution, but a criminal prosecution under the penal code. I thought, it's terrorism. It's lawfare. It's like what happened to Donald Trump, where you haul somebody into court who doesn't belong there. So they're using lawfare against our kids. And against any families that want to speak out. Any doctors, the doctors who give parents medical exemptions, then the public health department turns them over to the medical board, and the medical board investigates them, makes the doctor spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers, and then oftentimes takes away their medical license. I have a client who is a pediatrician who lost his medical license on account of this. And in my view, the exemption he wrote was perfectly legal, but they just bulldozed him.
And also, here's the thing, you can't mandate something that can kill or can cause serious injury. I mean, we on the bus, we interviewed the parents of a 7-year-old girl who took one flu shot and is dead. 10-year-old Isabella Zughi, who'd had the Gardasil shot, she's dead. And there's many more. So you cannot mandate something that can and does kill.
Right. And that's the basis of this case. It's alleging 8 violations of due process. And Dr. Richard Fox has made a very astute comparison to death row, which I would like Dr. Fox to describe, because I think it's a very compelling argument.
Well, as most people who watch crime shows know, that convicted killers in most states, they can't be executed. In a few states, they can be executed by lethal injection, but they get usually court hearings all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. On the other hand, California and a lot of other states mandate these lethal injections for innocent little children who have not been convicted of anything, and they get no appeal to the courts or the Supreme Court or anything of the kind. It's just it's terrible.
It is terrible. Okay, so both of you summarize up again what it is you want people to do and where they should go to do it in the last few minutes. Let's make sure everyone absolutely knows how important this is.
We need any parent who has a child injured from a vaccine with chronic illness or who tragically had a child die after a vaccine to write a declaration for us. And to do that, please go to our website, freenowfoundation.org. But I don't think the link is up there just yet because we've just come up with this project yesterday. So please email me at chairman@freenowfoundation.org and I can get you the forms.
And when you've got it, we can also put it in our show notes for those watching the show later on and want to just get involved. What's the timeline on this?
We need to get those forms in by Monday because we're doing an amended complaint that's due on Wednesday. So we've got to have those very, very quickly. So thank you so much, Polly, for having us on the show, because this is urgent and this could change the entire vaccine medical exemption, actually the entire exemption landscape in California and beyond. I mean, if and when we win this case, and we're very optimistic, the whole exemption scheme would be done. It would be done, and it would go back to informed choice and parental choice.
Well, Alix Mayer and Dr. Fox, you're doing sterling work. Thank you for protecting these children and the future. So thank you for all that you both do. And we will definitely, I know our people will jump on this. So you should have that link up on Free Now Foundation shortly, in a few hours, maybe. No pressure. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you both. And do come back and tell us how it's going and what else our viewers and we can do for you. Thank you both for being here so early in the morning. We appreciate you both.
Thank you, Polly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody. Well, this is what it's about. The real news. This is real news. This is Alix Mayer calling me late last night saying, we've got to get this out. This is what's going to change it. All of us, the people coming together. So do go over to the Free Now Foundation. And as soon as that links up, just fill out that form and help them. Protect these children in California and beyond, as she says. Right, well now, how many times? Vaccines do not cause autism, they don't cause autism. Well, they do, I'm afraid. So here we go, off with our stories again. We'll keep bashing these stories out until everybody understands the true danger of vaccines. So here's Jenny McCarthy. She came on the bus with her husband and they told the story of what happened to her son. So here's that. Okay, we're live. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
All right, so we're going to start this interview by asking you who you are.
My name is Jenny McCarthy, and my son is Evan Asher, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
And you are?
I am her husband, Donnie Wahlberg, and I am Evan Asher's stepdad. And
I'm going to turn this
I live
on.
in St. Charles, Illinois with Jenny and Evan.
See, peeps? I had to ask them that question. They get it. Lots of lols going on. Anyway, okay, so, and the other first question that we've started to ask people is when you were pregnant with your son, because you have one child, yes?
Correct.
When you were pregnant with your child, could I have called you an anti-vaxxer, either of you, in those days?
No.
Right. What did you think of people that didn't vaccinate, if you had any thoughts on that at all?
You know what? I can tell you this. The first time I heard of it, I was at the store, and Time magazine was right by the register, and there was a little mention on the cover. So while I was waiting for my groceries to be rung up, I opened it up and read the page. And it basically said there's a group of parents that are concerned about the MMR. And that's about as far as I got. And a chill went up my spine because I knew Evan was about to go in for his MMR in a few months. And I shut it and I went, ugh. And then it was time for him to go in. And I got this horrible feeling. And I went in with my husband at the time. And I said, I don't want him to have the shot. I have a very sick feeling. And the doctor said, he wouldn't even look at me. He said, it's stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. It's crazy mothers. He's going to be fine. And then they handed me basically a contract of like 3 pieces of paper, said I had to sign it. And I said, I can't do it. I have a sick feeling in my stomach. I can't do it. My ex at the time said, I'll sign it. So he took it, signed it. I left the room. I remember standing in the hallway going, I just feel like something bad's going to happen. And I heard him get poked and cry, and we left. And I was told, see, everything was fine. Within a couple of months, I could start to see a bit of a regression, but I didn't know it was a regression. I just remember things like, how come he's not looking at me anymore? Why isn't he smiling? And I called my mother and I said, did I ignore you? Did I not care about you at a certain point? And she said, I don't know what you're talking about. I go, well, I'm trying to play with him. I feed him. It's like I'm invisible. And she said, no, you're just thinking too much. You're just there all day. You're just a stay-at-home mom right now. And I kind of brushed it off. And then it was so weird. My mom came in to visit the next week, and we were sitting having coffee, and I looked at the clock, and I thought to myself, that's weird. Evan has never slept in past 7, and it was 7:30. And there was no other signal other than inside my body. And I looked at my mother, and she said, what's wrong? I go, something's wrong. And I stood up, and I booked to his bedroom, opened the door, and I could see his body convulsing from the crib. I had no idea I've never seen anything like it. I picked him up, screamed as loud as I possibly could, ran through the house, put him on the ground, and my mom started screaming also, like, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? His eyeballs were rolled on the back of his head. He was convulsing so bad. My ex-husband came running in. I called 911. It felt like it took forever for them to get there. They came, they were trying to give him an IV, but he was shaking, convulsing so bad they couldn't get the IV in. They kept trying. Finally got him in and got in the ambulance. I went in the front seat, went to the hospital. They ran every test. I'm sure every mom, this will sound familiar. Spinal tap, MRI, CAT scan, nothing came up. So basically they discharged it as he had a febrile seizure. And I said, well, he didn't have a fever. He wasn't even hot. I don't understand. Our febrile seizures are associated with heat. And they said, well, there was no other connection. So within about another week and a half, Evan's behavior was a wreck, constantly screaming. And we took a drive to Palm Springs. And in those 3 hours of a drive, I went to get him out of the car. I remember him looking really stoned and going, this doesn't seem right. And I brought him in the house, and he went limp, and I laid him on the bed, and I could tell he was seizing, but it wasn't a normal seizure. It was the seizures that you don't breathe at all, and there's just foam that comes out of your mouth. So his eyes rolled up and to the left, and you just saw foam. And I immediately stripped, all I knew was, I read so much about febrile seizures within a course of a week and a half that I ripped off all of his clothes and I threw ice on him because I thought maybe he's having another febrile seizure. So I'm trying to cool him. I'm talking 911, screaming at them. He turns blue, and then, God, it's perfect. I must get there. And then his eyes dilated, his pupils went big, and I fell to the floor and just stared at him, and he was gone. His chest stopped rising up and down, and he was gone. And in that moment, I don't want to cry. I just remember having a conversation with him, because I felt like if he left his body, like we all maybe think, I just said he needs to come back. Because the only other option was, I was thinking knife or run in the middle of the street to kill myself to join him. That was the only option. And that's what I was literally saying. Knife, car, which one? Because I'm not going to survive this. And the paramedic came in, and I said, he's not breathing. And they kind of weirdly didn't believe me. It's weird how casual they seem sometimes. They came over, checked his vitals, and realized there was nothing. So they immediately started CPR on him. They wanted to try to get him breathing again before they got on the ambulance. They couldn't. So they put him on the stretcher, and we're doing CPR the whole way in the ambulance. They put me in the front seat. So while I'm in the front seat, I'm still talking to God. I'm talking to Evan. I'm trying to make deals with God. And I keep looking in the back seat window, and they're still performing CPR. And after like a minute, 2 minutes, I get a thumbs up. So my life came back inside my body.
How long had he stopped breathing for?
I would say, I'd say about 3.5 minutes. Enough for some brain damage. So we got to the hospital, and as Evan was being wheeled out of the ambulance, he started seizing again. So they bring him into the hospital, and they're trying to get that seizure to stop. They're calling for helicopters to come get him, because we're in Palm Springs. They want to get him to Cedars-Sinai, which is the big hospital. The helicopters are all taken for emergencies. They finally get him back and say, the doctor comes and says he needs to get to a major hospital right now. So he said, I'm gonna have to put you in an ambulance. You have to do a 3-hour drive, which is terrifying. But he said, I'm going to put you in a code red type of a ambulance. And so I got in the back of the ambulance, drove 3 hours to Los Angeles, and he seized about 6 more times on the way there. Got to Cedars, it was Easter, and he seized for about 7 hours. And I turned into Shirley MacLaine in the hospital, banging on nurses' desks to do something. I just couldn't understand how you could just watch a kid seize and not do anything. And finally, I mean, I guess there's only so much morphine they could give him at this point. The next day, the doctor came in. They did some EEGs. They said he's having seizures. And I'm like, he's watching TV right now. How is he having seizures? Like, oh, look at his brain. So the doctor came in and says, I'm sorry, your son has epilepsy. Who in your family has epilepsy? I go, no one in my family has epilepsy. No one. So he gave me that diagnosis and said, we're going to try him on some drugs. I just knew that connection was not right at all. And I went home. I tested all the seizure meds before I would give them to him, because he wasn't speaking, so how would I know what they felt like? So I was trying them. Finally got to the right kind of seizure medication, but was still seizing, but he wasn't having side effects that were causing him to be a zombie. And then we brought him into another doctor, and like a neurologist, and he said, oh, this isn't epilepsy, this is autism. And I had just, like every parent, I died in that moment. And I immediately flashed to the doctor's office of that moment where I had that gut feeling. And I was with my ex-husband at the time, who said, like, holy cow, holy shit, you were right. I can't believe you were right. And we went home. I bawled my eyes out, and I went online and I Googled autism. And up in the corner of the screen was a sponsored ad that said, Hope for Recovery, Generation Rescue. And I thought, okay, sponsored ad, they're talking about recovering autism. This must be a joke, because otherwise UCLA the top neurologist in the world would have told me there was things I could do. So I looked and read Generation Rescue, and I went, well, these parents don't sound crazy. These parents sound like they've done their homework. And these doctors on this site sound like they've done their homework. So I said, well, what do I have to lose? They're talking about trying a diet. So I started the diet, and then while I was doing all these things, I was researching and trying to make some connections. And as I was making them, the more and more it felt like a lightning bolt hitting me every single day of, holy shit, he is vaccine injured. I had this beautiful boy who was beautiful and perfect and giggly and said mama, and then seized till he died. And then I continued on the journey of trying to make him better. 6 months later, he had another seizure that lasted 6.5 hours long. And in the emergency room, I was screaming to do something because he's going to go into cardiac arrest. And I know mothers that have said that their child seized and got into cardiac arrest and passed away, many of them. So they kept shooting him up with Ativan and morphine, and a doctor came in and said, we have to put him in a coma, a phenobarbital coma, in order to save his life.
How old is he at this point?
He is 3.5. So we put him in a phenobarbital coma, and I didn't know what that was, but that basically is making your brain dead. So on paper, the brain goes, there's no brain activity whatsoever. And what happens when you put your kid in a or anyone in a phenobarbital coma, the brain goes dead, your body stops breathing. So you have to be put on life support. So I'm in the hospital going, he's about to be put in a coma. And now they're telling me I have to be transferred again into a more intense hospital. I try to tell the doctors about a connection. They don't want to hear it. I mean, it's literally...
You mean you mentioned they had the MMR?
Correct.
And they're not interested?
There was no... Absolutely. It was like I was speaking another language. We were in then another hospital in the ICU for about 5 days. He came out of his coma on the 5th day. And they said, we don't know where he's going to be after this coma. We don't know. And he came back, thank God. And I know between the cardiac arrest and the coma, there's brain injuries from that alone. So I dug in and did even more homework and just went on a rampage of saying, you know what, God, just show me the way. Show me how to heal him, and then I promise I'll make a deal with you, and I will tell everyone. I won't care what anyone says. I'm going to tell the whole world this is a vaccine injury, and this is how I healed my kid. So I was guided, I believe, by, whether they're signposts, guardian angels, whatever you want to believe, to bring me to the right doctors, the right moms, the right therapists, and he made dramatic improvements. Huge improvements. And that was when I decided, like a year and a half later, to write my first book, because I couldn't take watching the amount of children getting hurt and no one shouting from the rooftops.
Now, these people here are showing you got so much hearts. Incredible. Love, hearts coming from everywhere. And thanking you, because that book, these books, there's more than one book you've written, isn't it? You've got DVDs, you've got something, you've got more. They're saying thank you because thanks to your book and all of you talking out as much as you have, you've saved so many babies. Really, honestly, these people have been with me right from the start, and your name has come up more than anybody else's name.
I'm
so
very
thank you.
Happy to hear that. Thank you for saying that, and thank you.
From them to you, love. So it's really hard when we have people on here the whole time, and we say to these people, what is your advice? What? Because you didn't know, and we've just started the Did You Know in response to the HPV Gardasil vaccine commercial. What would you say to a young mum now? Did you know this could happen? Because we had no idea that our children would have seizures. I had no idea.
No idea.
So these young people? They trust their doctors with their life. They're medically trained. I mean, why would you not?
If I could roll time I say to myself now, well, I wish there was a celebrity that came before me. I might have done more homework, or I wish I had a relative that I knew that could have told me. I might have listened. But just hearing it through, like, you know, a little paragraph in a magazine, it wasn't really talked about that much at all. So that's what led me, that's where this rage of wanting to speak out about it came from. I think I would have absolutely I would have stopped it from happening if I was a little bit more educated on it.
And just all there in the insert. I mean, I didn't even think that there was an insert in a vaccine.
No. I didn't even know there were multiple diseases in a shot. I just didn't know. I trusted.
It seemed like as much as informed as people are in a room like today, when Robert Kennedy Jr. put up what's on the insert, it almost seemed like, even though everyone is very well informed here, it almost seemed like, wait, what? Like, I mean, we were sitting around people, some of them were like, it is on the insert? Like, it's there.
It is there. And we get so
outrageous.
bullied in doctors' offices, and I'm sure you hear that, where the doctors make us feel stupid. And that made me so angry when I hear parent after parent coming to me at these conferences going, you know, I was bullied into it. And I still hear that today. I have, the part that hurts me the most is the moms that come up to me today and go, I thought you were crazy. And I so wish I would have listened. When I hear the ones that say, thank you, it stopped me from continuing, it's like, okay, it was totally worth, you know, getting fired from multiple jobs, I could take a beating by social media like I think no other, if it's going to help people. So I just pray that people really start to wake up and listen to parents. That yes, we trust our doctors and we want to completely trust them, but if you did a little bit of the following the money on this, let alone the vaccine like ingredient stuff, following the money will wake you up to realize, do all pediatricians want to know? Do they really want to know?
The interesting thing too is if you follow the money in reverse, you know, and I feel like when I met Jenny, I told her the story of my younger son and how he had a double ear infection. His mom went away. I took him to the doctor, and he said, well, his pediatrician said, well, while he's here, he's due, I think, 6 shots. And I was like, I can't really do that. Like, do we have to do that? And he was like, I mean, he's screaming with a double ear infection. He's got a skyrocketing fever. His mom's away. I'm by myself, and I'm like, I'm kind of the softie of the two of us, between his mom and I, but I was just like, do I really have to do this right now? I didn't know. This is, 13 years ago. He's 16 now, maybe more, probably 14 years ago. So I didn't know anything about anything. I just knew I didn't want to inflict more pain on my son while he was in this condition.
Everyone's on bated breath right now to find out if you actually went ahead and...
Well, this is going back to following the money trail in reverse. I could afford to come back. And the doctor said, you know what? He was a really bright pediatrician. He actually noticed that my son needed glasses at 11 months. And he's not an ophthalmologist, he's a pediatrician. He said, you have to take your son to an eye doctor right away. Something's going on with his eye. Sure enough, my son had amblyopia and needed glasses, and if he hadn't gotten the glasses, probably within 6 months, he would have lost his eye. So,
like Gavin.
Right. So anyway, he said, you know what? It's cool. I spoke to the mom. She was like, all right, if you feel like not doing it, let's come back. And the doctor was like, you know what? Come back in 6 months. Come back. It's all good. Come back when you're ready. Talk to the mom and whatever. You don't have to do it now. The thing is, and when I say follow the money in reverse, I could afford to make that choice. How many parents can't? So to know years later
they get bullied into
that he was vulnerable in that moment, and that could have been, that's where a lot of parents go in and their kid's already sick, or there's something wrong, or they have, vulnerabilities
Can't take off work.
That's
whatever
when
it
it's
might be,
most
too.
dangerous to get an injury. And so, that always stuck with me. And the more I learned over time, and then when I met Jenny, I brought it up to her, and she was like, thank God. I always felt like we dodged a bullet somehow. And I don't, I don't.
Parent on here screaming.
I know
too.
parents are,
they're so
and that's the
happy
thing.
for
I feel almost guilty talking about it because I don't want to be a success story and let any parents feel like that they made any mistakes, or that I think something. I just know I knew something wasn't right, but from that time on, I've always thought, how many families can't afford to just come back? How many families can't afford to say, hey, you know what? I can just pay for another appointment, no problem. I can, I'm fully insured. I could do all this stuff. So I can afford to come back. I can afford to take a day off work in 3 months and do the shot later. No big deal. So many families can't, and they have no choice. Never mind, they may have a pediatrician who's not flexible. They can't afford to be flexible themselves.
The thing is, too, is that pediatricians, they went into this business because they love children. They actually want to care for them. And watching your videos on Vaxxed, to see the pediatricians that do their homework and wake up is everything. And I go, how can every pediatrician not do that? Where they're taking their pediatric medical book that comes in the mail with all the big pharma ads and read, oh, this doesn't cause autism. End of story. When I hear the science is done, I lose my mind when I hear that statement. That doesn't even make sense, even to a scientist. It's like an oxymoron. Nothing is ever done. You're supposed to retest and question and figure shit out. And it makes, there's so many parts of this that make me crazy, besides following the money, besides the moms that are vulnerable, to the doctors that are pushy, to the husband and wives that aren't on the same page, or they're divorced. The husband wants to vaccinate, the mom doesn't want to vaccinate, to the like you said, the money. There's so many different aspects sometimes, and sometimes I get lost on where to keep fighting. I absolutely still speak up. It's not as much as I used to. I know a lot of people go, well, where are you? I'm still there. I still make my moments. It's just, how do I explain this? Being a single mom at the time of a child with special needs, and you get fired from your 14th job.
Because of vaccines, speaking about vaccines.
Correct. And you go, okay, I just triple mortgaged my house. I'm about to live with my mom again. I have to still speak up, but I can't make it my full-time job. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to afford any treatments. So it was kind of a decision I had to make to balance. And I think it came at the right time. After speaking out for about 5, 6, 7 years, hardcore, I realized I didn't have any new messages. It was the same message. And I can assure you, like I was heard. When I was with Oprah on that first show, that very first show I had to do, she told me this had to be done live because so many people were trying to stop this from happening. So I knew I was about to open Pandora's box and I had to be in front of it. And I knew the repercussions. Everything I could take. You can call me whatever the hell you want. When jobs start taken away, when I see Andy Wakefield get his medical license pulled, all these other incredible doctors who are up for investigation for doing what is right, heartbreaking. So if I were to have a message to our community, besides spreading the word, when we see one of our own parents, Polly, you name it, speaking on behalf of the community, rally behind these souls that come forward. I watched Rob Schneider, who doesn't have anyone affected, come forward on behalf of our community. He was talking, he went down to the Capitol to speak on behalf of us, and he was fired from his Allstate or whatever insurance company. Heartbreaking, because I can't even get mad at him for quieting down. It's like, it's such bullshit though, that and this is how they do it though. This is how they do it. They have their trolls go and minefield all of their, websites and get people fired.
Yeah,
So-
we're stepping on a few right now. they're probably watching right now.
Actually, you just got love and hearts.
You
right
know,
now.
it's no. I'm saying.
But I'm saying
the,
just to finish
the
point,
watchdogs.
Yeah.
to support like sometimes there's someone says, hey, you guys go online, like JB Hamley, I love him, hey, I need some support on this page right now, or go and email this person right now. Just don't spend your full-time job is taking care of your kids, but once in a while, if you feel inspired, those emails to get behind something make a huge difference.
Well, you tell us if you need a lot. There's thousands and thousands here that will have your back if you need it.
How about like our relationship starts and Jenny has to have a sit down with me.
Oh yeah.
A sit down. So I know about her son. We talked about that early on, but we're starting to get a little more serious now, and so I'm like, okay, what is this? We have to have a talk. And it was outside of the talk about Evan and the talks that we would have as a couple getting to know each other, a talk about there's something else that comes along with me, which is this danger, of having your rights trampled and, potentially hurting your career and doing all this stuff.
Just
and it
a
was
few
like,
death
and,
threats
yeah,
and things
so,
like that.
and so now I start becoming aware of, anytime her name's mentioned, anything, she could save the world. 2 comments after the article, 2 comments in, it's going to be, she's crazy, she's this, she's that, she's killing people. I've never heard her tell anyone to not do anything,
Right.
by the way, and you can look it up on YouTube, other than be careful and ask questions. And that's what I felt in that moment. When we had that talk, I asked questions. I didn't know. I told her the story of my son and how I always felt like I somehow dodged a bullet not knowing anything about any of this. But I've stayed on that path, and I think that's sort of why I'm here now. And maybe a lot of people say, Jenny doesn't quite speak out as ferociously anymore. Again, not that it was that ferocious. I mean, go on YouTube and look up Jenny McCarthy is not anti-vaccine. And it's all, she told Oprah, but she talked about safety and the need for safety, and that there's different children. You don't give a child who's 6'4", 280 pounds, the same dosage of an aspirin that you would give a child who's 4 foot 80 pounds. You wouldn't do that. Why would you do it with needles and all this other stuff? These are logical questions. I'm not telling people don't do or do anything, but from our conversation, my thing became why. Why can't you talk about it? Why can't you ask questions? So I started to research her and say, okay, let me see what she said. Let me see what's been said. And it just constantly became why. Why is it so bad for people to ask this question? If medical science was locked in and could never change, we'd still be taking castor oil and St. Joseph's chewable aspirins, and that's it. We wouldn't be taking anything else. That castor oil will heal all your ills in the 40s. What happened to that?
Online, I want to mention.
I mean, science, like Pluto's a planet one week, it's not the next. I mean, what happened to the little planetary chart we used to learn about? Everything evolves, everything changes, and everything needs to be constantly researched. And my thought is, why not here? Just why not here? So if Jenny can't speak out and be as vocal, I was new to this when I met her. So I say why. Why not? Why are people being told to shut up when they ask questions? Why are people having their lives turned upside down by asking simple questions? There's enough questionable stuff out there, including, like you said, it's in the insert. It's in the insert of the shot.
It's on the CDC website.
It's on the website, and everyone who, it's there.
I mean,
and if you question it, you're a crazy person, you're a kook. I'm going to be a kook starting now, to somebody out there. This is just logical stuff, logical questions to ask. I said today in my speech, if a woman has the right to choose whether or not she brings a child into this world. Why doesn't she have a right to choose what she puts in that child until the child can make up its own mind? Isn't that a logical question? That's basic math.
And the thing that I've noticed about our community too is when you go online and see the back and forth between both sides, I'm always amazed by how educated our families are. Our parents, they've done the homework. And even when they're trying to do the argument back and forth, they're not even arguing. They're literally stating facts, and I'm watching the other side, them being called names. And I just say to this community, after being in this so long, just keep telling your truth without projecting our pain onto them, because the truth is what's going to set us free.
100%.
100%. And if we bring in the anger, it's going to come back at us. But if we keep speaking our truth, we are on the verge of becoming free, and our babies can be hopefully saved.
If defense is the first act of war, all you have to ask is who's defending themselves.
One of the things that really shocked me when I was on this tour is the things that pediatricians say to these parents. And one of the first death stories was the Bundy story, and their little baby Mason at 4 months. The mother and father said, well, he's really little. We don't really want to give this baby these vaccines. And the pediatrician said, if you don't vaccinate this baby, then you're going to be signing his death certificate. And then this baby, they find their baby dead in the crib.
After they got the vaccine?
Yeah, they did it because they were told this baby would die, and sure enough, it did die. I'm sorry, it's unbearable.
No,
this is my life.
No, we're just adjusting. But
I'm almost 50. My back sometimes disagrees with me, so I'm just.
And you know what else? Recently, we just heard in the media, the Today Show had on someone from the CDC talking about pregnancy and flu shots, and how it's coming out that pregnant women who had the flu shot are miscarrying, or I think that was the final story, miscarrying.
Sure.
Matt Lauer and the other two hosts had someone on from the CDC, and the spin story was insane from it. That I sometimes think, like, how can people literally watch someone spin something like this and believe it? Like, since when
Why
does everyone believe?
Why does the news spin? I mean, they're supposed to be the truth seekers.
But isn't the
Of course.
pharmaceuticals pay all the ads and pay them?
Of course, you can do that math. I'm just saying, it's.
And what happened to our journalists? What happened to them? Besides, are they all being paid from Big Pharma? I can tell you that me being on network television, I've been absolutely silenced into shutting up. So I can only imagine when a journalist tries to do a story. I mean, Katie Couric got spanked. Cheryl Atkinson, I think, has gotten reprimanded. That's where I go when these truth seekers that start shouting out. Let's rally behind them, support them as much as possible, and all stand on each other's shoulders, because it's going to take all of us to keep shouting.
And to keep asking questions, to keep pushing for answers.
Shouting the questions.
Now, because you're kind of new to this, really.
Sure.
So what happens when you try and have a conversation with friends and stuff? Do they think you're crazy now?
No.
So they listen?
I've seen multiple things since I've been exposed to this world and become a part of this community, and consistently they are untruths about the subject, untruths about my wife, and 99 out of 100 people thank me for my wife.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you.
There's no, your wife's crazy, you're crazy. There's nothing. I think it may be in the beginning, I might have seen some resistance, maybe on social media, whatever, even from certain people in my world, certain fans or whatever, but I think they've all come around. I think people know me. They know I'm not. I think I have a certain amount of credibility.
He does his own critical thinking.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm not going to go, guess what?
No. Listen,
he's been along the journey.
I would have been out the door. But I've also seen things. I mean, I don't want to tell other people's stories.
Right.
But I
witnessed.
Play golf occasionally. And there was a person at a golf course who would be there every time I would golf, who suddenly wasn't there for 6 months. 19-year-old who wasn't there. And then suddenly he was there again.
Flu
And I
shot?
said, huh?
Flu shot?
HPV.
Oh no.
And I said, what happened? Where were you? Oh, I almost died. What do you mean? I don't know. I got really sick, and I didn't suggest this. I didn't say what it was. At the end of the story, and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking like, that's 19. What could have happened at 19? At the end of the story, it was, I got an HPV shot and had a bad reaction. That's not a made-up story. That's not fiction. That's the truth. That's a story. I don't want to sit here and say who this person is because they didn't tell me to go tell my story to the world. But
no, you have to.
I mean,
it's just the thing is, now that you're connected to me, people come up and want to tell their stories.
But
also.
This person has no knowledge of. It didn't even. I actually, in the conversation, I said, "Did you get a shot or anything?" And it was, well, that's where I'm going with it.
So next time, get your phone out, go on our social media, and do the story. Okay. We need ambassadors doing it everywhere.
It's not. I don't even have to be an ambassador. It's just if someone tells me their truth, why would I question it? And why would I want to deny anyone their truth or their ability to ask the necessary questions to get the answers that they need? That's logical stuff. This is America. If we can't even ask questions, what?
Right.
We can't ask questions. We can't tell people, this is my story, be careful. I didn't look both ways crossing the street and I got hit by a car. You might want to look both ways before you cross the street, people. You can't tell people to not look both ways. You can't do that. Or to look both. You can't. What? Of course. This is what happened to me. I'm passing it on. And I'm trying to understand. What's wrong with that?
Holly, can I ask you a question?
Sorry.
Yeah. If you're still not going to pass out with this
preaching to the choir.
They're
so
loving you. Both of you. They love you.
I love them. Really, their support has gotten me, like for yourself. You guys help keep me going. Having feeling that support helps. But the stories that I watch nightly on Vaxxed and seeing the pictures.
She's a peep. Peeps.
I am.
She's a peep.
And the work you're doing is, people would always say, God's work, you are absolutely doing it. What's the biggest thing that you've learned?
It's a really good question.
You're in the hot seat now.
To be honest with you, the biggest thing I learned is it's not just about MMR. The MMR is right down here. I had no idea about all these other vaccines. I had no idea that people die from vaccines. Babies die, all the SIDS. I've been doing this for 19 years, shouting out about the MMR. I had no idea that all vaccines are unsafe and ineffective. They are, they tell me, the people tell me.
That's what I've come to learn too. And then when I back it up and I go, oh, Evan did have eczema early on. To me, there are red flags of immune dysregulations. And then there's one shot that takes you over the tipping point. And wherever that one is, sometimes the bullet gets hit, in a different spot.
And the health of the unvaccinated. When they first started coming to the bus, they were really irritating. I was like, what are you doing here? We're doing serious work here. We're doing injuries. And they just wouldn't go away. And it was one day I was like, wait, they're here for a reason. And their kids had this bright light in their eyes. And I'm not saying we want all these diseases to come back and everything. I'm not saying that. But I am saying there's something extraordinary about the health of the unvaccinated. They don't have ear infections. They don't have antibiotics. They are healthy and they're cool and they're happy. And those parents don't have that deep sadness.
That's right.
In their eyes.
And you can see the light in the kids' eyes. My sister was going to vaccinate. I wasn't going to try to ever pressure anybody to try to switch. I give them my education. I tell them my story. I help them out, answer every question, and then they're on their own. She decided the last minute not to do it. Her kids, the sparkle in their eye, the smartest in the class, the most focused, never sick.
They don't get anxiety like all these teenagers that are killing themselves with anxiety and on drugs. This is way bigger than I ever imagined. Going around speaking to the parents, the power of the people is something else. I'm not afraid at all. I have all these people here. They're my family. They just stay with me everywhere I go.
I love that, and I love your balls. Can I tell you that? I love the way you talk on this bus. I love your questions. I think you are a gift to all of us. I know it. I remember
She fell in love with my balls and we got married.
Oh, okay.
So you might be flying home
Okay, I'm
with
really
us
uncomfortable
tonight.
right now.
I know you have to take the compliment. You're giving me the compliment. I know it's hard sometimes, but I'm telling you on behalf, because I know they're feeling the same way. Every time I watch the videos, I go, Polly, I love you. Thank you. I remember one thing, and then I know we'll wrap it up, but when I walked into my first speech therapy room, when Evan was first diagnosed, the first appointment I made, I saw the moms in the room go like this. Thank God.
Right.
And I went, oh my God, I can't believe these people, these strangers are glad my kid has autism. And boy, do I get it. They wanted someone to speak on behalf of them. So anytime someone is brave enough to speak out, and I know that you've taken a lot of shit yourself.
Oh, brilliant husband. You need to know. He's fantastic. Without him, he wants this finished as much as I do. So without him, no way.
Right.
And then he goes, everybody does want to know how Evan is today.
Evan is doing amazing. Puberty, very difficult.
How old is he now?
15.
Oh, wow.
He just
Fun
took his
time.
driver's permit and he got 100%. We studied really hard though. He has, when he took his, what do you call it, a recheck, whatever, he lost his autism diagnosis a while back. But each one of those forms that we fill out, that the doctors come back with, the psychotherapist, the whatever you want, developmental people, there's brain damage from cardiac arrest, from phenobarbital comas. So that's kind of where we see a lot of the ouchies along the way. His spirit is one of the most amazing, glowing spirits. I tell him sometimes, he basically said to me, this was about 3 months ago, I just Googled my name. And I just went, oh my God, I knew this day was coming. Oh my God, because he didn't sign up for this. And I remember that day where I go, I need to make this decision to come out. And this kid didn't sign up for this. And I'm making him a poster child. And I said, the greater good right now is pushing me towards he will understand someday. Well, that phone call happened. And I explained to him how many kids that he's helped and how many mommies he's helped and daddies and families. And he listened and he goes, okay, you know what? I understand. I forgive you for telling all those stories. Now all you need to do is just delete them.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And
that's literally why I
just
don't want to tell
delete
stories, because I don't want,
of course.
my nephew was impacted recently. I can't tell that story. My sister hasn't given me the authorization to tell that story, but it's because I've heard Evan say, what's all this? And so, my kids don't like me talking about them at all, period.
So you could imagine when I'm talking about all these things, he's like, but he's getting it. He's getting it. And that conversation I had, I go, well, that's another conversation. You can't delete things on the internet, so be careful what you put on there. But you know what I did, Polly? I had saved, when I first came out, parents from everywhere wrote letters to me and Evan. And I saved them all.
Good idea.
And I put them in a big ribbon, and there's a stack in my house. And they're 10 years old, 11 years old, and says, Dear Evan, you helped me with my son, da 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 da. So someday, a few more years.
Some days he'll know. And as Billy says, my son, there's no vax bus in heaven, mummy. Meaning, we're done.
That's amazing.
And I think there is no vax bus in heaven.
No.
I think we're cool on that one. Okay.
But you know what? All the moms and dads were meeting us in heaven, and I'm buying all the shots for us.
That's
these shots, by the way.
Now, everybody does lots of questions, but I think we are actually probably going to die if we stay in this bus any longer.
It's 2,000 degrees,
hot.
but I'm so honored.
This is how it is.
to
It
be
doesn't
here.
work properly.
We literally said we have to do the interview inside the bus because it's so hot outside. We didn't
Right.
realize
What
it was
you didn't
hotter.
realize.
It was hotter in.
It's
So what we're going to do is we're going to sign Evan's name on the bus.
Yes, we are.
He'll never be able to find it. Because many parents say, oh, my child will be really upset if his
If
name's
you
on
put
the
a
bus.
video of it on the internet, he'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why
Oh,
did
yeah,
you
we
write
are
my
live.
name on that
We
bus?
are live. We
Why
are
did you
because,
write- no.
but Evan, if you are listening, you have helped so many children. We thank you. We thank you. We love you. Okay. Should we go and sign the bus? Now, wait, he's got a number. I hate to give a child a number, but
And thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your support.
They
too.
love you, and you have to go back and see all your hearts. So 6269
Wow.
is the number.
I'm going to write that one down so I know. I'm
Right,
sorry,
let's turn this back on again.
can you repeat that number for me?
6269.
Okay.
So do you warn or like your parents and stuff about flu shots? Because the elderly are really getting hit hard on these.
Right.
I don't even know what's going on with that. Like, my friend just had a baby, and he was having the baby, and he was like, I have to go in and get a bunch of shots before I have the baby.
No.
I was like, what? What are you talking about? He was like, yeah, I got to get a bunch of shots. And I was like, and you know, we're so used to in society, unless you're a little closer to this, I would never have thought about it. I wouldn't have thought twice. Like, oh, you got to get shots when you have a baby now? Oh, okay.
You know,
Whatever.
it says
I guess-
awful ads of the
Oh my
grandma
God.
with the baby that's petrifying people.
Right.
Have you seen them?
I'm not.
Yes, or the child
That's-
going, thanks, Mom, thanks a lot for my STD. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
mum,
my
did
God.
you know?
Right.
Yeah, they're wicked.
Yeah,
Well,
well, I saw him a few days before his baby was born, and he's favoring his arm. I'm like, what's the matter? He's like, the freaking flu shot and tetanus shot they gave me, my freaking arm is a mess. I was like, give parents shots
Yeah.
before a baby.
I need to get Dr.
Weird.
Suzanne Humphries to do way more on this so you can just send people clips. We need to shorten them down. Doctors are too clever for their own good, as in the good ones I'm talking about, peeps. Don't panic.
I love her so much.
I don't want them thinking I'm saying doctors are good. We don't
You
do
are
that.
the greatest person.
I'm not saying
I don't have a job to lose either, so
we
let's
should
put it
return. You know, I went to the hospital when the baby was born, and I'm not saying we should return to these days, but I mean, the dads used to smoke cigarettes in the waiting room, you know, down the hall, and they didn't even wash their hands when they came in to handle the babies, and that's not okay. But now they're getting shots instead. It's like, it's just...
Well, this chickenpox, the varicella chickenpox vaccine
Right.
is crippling
Right.
kids.
And it isn't giving the grandparents shingles?
So they say. All right, can I just, we're going to die if we stay in here.
We're gonna
That is
die
going to
here.
happen,
I
which
just
would
wanna
be
tell everyone thank you
really
again.
awful if I
Thank
killed you
you.
guys in the back bus.
Thank
Right,
you.
we're going to watch you. Well, they're going to come out and watch you sign the bus. Are you going to go up the ladder?
Yes.
Now, we have no insurance. You'll get a baby duckling. That's all you can sue me for.
Del,
If you fall off it.
Del can give me a big hug.
Yeah, you love Dal? Dal's good.
Del can give me a big hug if I fall.
Dal and Andy, they stick their necks out and they go
And
hard.
Polly.
Where's Toby? Get my 19-year-old trainee son in right
I
now.
love that you have your son in here, too.
I told him, come out of school. This is the best education you'll get.
This is the hottest bus in the world.
I know, nothing works. Be careful.
This one, right?
Yeah, let's take the bag out just in case. Some work.
You remembered it?
Toby, can you take one of these?
I probably have a sweaty butt.
I have to swim.
Oh yeah, this is really
Do you
gross.
have a spot or do I just pick it?
You pick it anyway you like. The ladder's there if you do want to go up. If you don't,
Here, I'll do it.
Yeah, and I have the professional photographer
This way?
too, so we'll...
you've got. No, you're not doing in case they're rude.
Got it. I don't care if they're rude. What are they gonna? What, they're gonna say rude words, and then what's gonna happen? My feelings will be hurt.
Did you say 6269?
6269.
Is that a bad pen?
No, I think it's good.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do 6230.
You want to do yours off camera?
No, I'm gonna sign on my camera
For who?
for my nephew.
For his nephew. I can help him. Oh my God.
My daughter, Bella.
Hi. Oh, you're the best mom in the world.
Loves Evans, so I want to do it today.
So nice to meet you, and thank you for coming on the bus.
Please.
Billy's coming on the bus next week, so all hell's going to be
No
very
way!
interesting.
We're gonna see. We bribed him with DVDs. Thomas the Tank Engine.
Let's have a look. Okay, there you go. The pen was bad. Thank you guys.
There's a little.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
And I've seen a much increase in the last few years with the development of 4G, 5G. 10 to 15-year-olds are now having a 533% increase in rectal cancer. And children are so much more susceptible. You know, their skulls are thinner and they have this developing nervous system, and we know that's a big deal. I had a patient who was always wearing the AirPod in one ear, and they said when they quit wearing it, they felt like a sensation there for a few days.
Join 18 EMF experts from April 10 to 15 at the 2025 EMF Hazard Summit. Discover how to reduce risks from AirPods, smartphones, Wi-Fi, and other sources of EMF exposure. Your children and grandchildren are counting on you. To register, visit emfhazards.com.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.